In an epoch-defining moment, the United Kingdom stands on the precipice of a political cataclysm, its foundations trembling under the weight of an unprecedented scandal that threatens to obliterate the very fabric of its government. At the heart of this seismic upheaval is Sir Keir Starmer, the embattled Prime Minister, whose tenure is now teetering on the edge of annihilation following a historic and devastating ruling from the Chief Justice. This is no mere political misstep. This is corruption so vast, so audacious, that it defies comprehension, a grotesque betrayal of the British people, with £22 billion of taxpayer money vanishing into a labyrinth of deceit, leaving the nation reeling in shock and fury. As the walls close in on Starmer, King Charles himself is said to be incandescent with rage, the monarchy poised to take an extraordinary stand, while the public takes to the streets in a roaring crescendo of indignation. The endgame is upon us, and the question reverberates across the land. Can Starmer survive this inferno, or will his reign crumble into dust? Before we plunge into the depths of this earth-shattering saga, we implore you, nay, we demand your voice in this critical hour. The fate of Britain hangs in the balance, and your thoughts must be heard. Leave your comments below to join the chorus of outrage and insight, and subscribe to our channel immediately. Yes, right now, for this is not merely an option, but a moral imperative. To miss a single update on this unfolding catastrophe would be to turn a blind eye to history itself. Subscribe, and stand with us as we expose the rot at the heart of power. The Chief Justice's ruling is nothing short of a thunderbolt from the heavens, a legal pronouncement so damning that it has sent shockwaves reverberating through the hallowed halls of Westminster and beyond. Delivered with the gravitas of a guillotine's descent, this verdict lays bare a scandal of such staggering proportions that it eclipses all prior political transgressions in British history. The numbers alone are enough to stagger the mind. £22 billion, £22,000 million of public funds, entrusted to the stewardship of Starmer's Labour government, have vanished into thin air. This is not a clerical error, nor a case of misplaced decimals. This is a deliberate, systematic plunder of the nation's coffers, a heist executed under the noses of a trusting populace. The court's findings are unequivocal. Under Starmer's leadership, the government has engaged in a pattern of financial malfeasance so egregious that it constitutes a betrayal of the sacred trust bestowed upon it. Contracts shrouded in secrecy, backroom deals cloaked in shadows, and financial sinkholes that defy explanation. These are the hallmarks of a regime that has forsaken its duty. The Chief Justice has declared this not merely an economic calamity, but a moral outrage, a violation of the principles of transparency and accountability that are the bedrock of democratic governance. And as the truth unfurls like a banner of disgrace, the nation watches in horror, its faith in its leaders shattered beyond repair. In Buckingham Palace, a storm is brewing. King Charles III, the steadfast guardian of Britain's traditions, is reportedly apoplectic, his regal composure strained to breaking point by the scale of Starmer's perfidy. The monarchy, bound by centuries of convention to remain aloof from the political fray, now finds itself thrust into an unprecedented dilemma. Sources within the royal household whisper of the king's deep disquiet, his fury stoked by the reckless squandering of £22 billion. Money that was meant to heal the sick, rebuild crumbling infrastructure, and bolster an economy battered by years of hardship. Instead, it has been siphoned away, funneled into the hands of Labour cronies and shadowy enterprises, leaving the nation impoverished and betrayed. The king's anger is mirrored on the streets, where the British people have erupted in a tidal wave of righteous indignation. From London to Manchester, from Birmingham to Glasgow, protests have ignited like wildfires, the air thick with chants of Starmer out, and justice now. Citizens who once placed their hopes in Labour's promises of equity and progress now brandish placards decrying a government they see as a den of thieves. The scale of the outrage is matched only by its intensity, a visceral howl of a populace that will no longer tolerate the pillaging of its wealth. Social media amplifies the clamour, with hashtags like #StarmerResign and #CorruptionCrisis dominating the digital landscape, a virtual uprising that mirrors the chaos unfolding in the physical world. Within the Labour Party itself, the edifice is crumbling. Once a bastion of working-class virtue, it now stands as a fractured shell, its unity devoured by the acid of corruption. Starmer's own MPs, sensing the ship sinking beneath their feet, are deserting him in droves. Resignations cascade like dominoes, each defection a dagger to the Prime Minister's faltering reign. Some flee in a desperate bid to salvage their reputations, distancing themselves from the stench of scandal. Others, once loyal to the core, turn on their leader with a ferocity born of betrayal, unwilling to be dragged into the abyss alongside him. Angela Rayner, Labour's deputy leader and Starmer's erstwhile confidant, finds herself ensnared in the same web of disgrace. The The Chief Justice's ruling has implicated her directly, accusing her of complicity in concealing the financial irregularities that have brought the government to its knees. Her silence in recent days is deafening, a stark contrast to her once vocal defense of Starmer's regime. Whispers abound that she is plotting her own escape, perhaps even scheming to seize the leadership should Starmer fall. But her own hands are stained, her credibility tarnished. Can she truly emerge from this wreckage unscathed, or will she too be consumed by the flames? The internal rebellion is relentless. Behind closed doors, Labour's corridors echo with the sounds of dissent. Secret conclaves where MPs plot Starmer's ouster, their voices rising in a cacophony of panic and recrimination. The party that once strode confidently into power is now a house divided. Its members torn between those who cling to a fading hope of redemption and those who see Starmer's removal as the only path to survival. The Chief Justice's verdict has lit the fuse, and the explosion is tearing Labour apart from within. At the epicenter of this maelstrom lies the missing £22 billion, a sum so colossal it beggars belief. This was no ordinary budget, it was the lifeblood of the nation, earmarked for hospitals to mend the broken, roads to connect the isolated, and wages to uplift the weary. Yet under Starmer's watch, it has evaporated, swallowed by a vortex of dubious contracts, inflated consultancy fees, and phantom projects that exist only on paper. Leaked documents, smuggled from the heart of government by courageous whistleblowers, reveal a chilling truth: this was no accident. Starmer himself, the evidence suggests, affixed his signature to transactions that redirected billions into the pockets of Labour loyalists and private firms with ties to the party's elite. The revelations grow darker with each passing day. Investigators peel back layer after layer of deception, uncovering a network of financial misconduct that stretches from Downing Street to the boardrooms of obscure corporations. Billions wasted on infrastructure that never materialized, emergency funds that vanished without a trace, consultancy fees that defy logic. These are not mere oversights, but a calculated scheme to enrich the few at the expense of the many. The whistleblower, now under armed guard for fear of reprisal, has provided testimony so explosive it could topple the government single-handedly. Starmer knew. He knew, and he approved. Legal scholars now warn of criminal consequences. Fraud, misappropriation of public funds, perhaps even conspiracy. The charges loom like specters over Starmer and his inner circle. The Chief Justice's ruling has set a precedent, a legal sword of Damocles that could sever their political lives and cast them into the dock. The nation watches, breathless, as the prospect of a Prime Minister facing trial, a scene unimaginable in modern Britain, edges closer to reality. Amid this chaos, all eyes turn to King Charles. The monarch, a figure of continuity in a nation adrift, is said to be wrestling with a decision that could redefine his reign. The £22 billion scandal is not merely a political failure. It is an assault on the values he has championed: integrity, service, responsibility. Sources close to the palace reveal that Charles is livid, his patience exhausted by a government that has plunged Britain into economic turmoil and moral disgrace. The monarchy's neutrality, a cornerstone of its existence, is being tested as never before. Behind the palace's gilded walls, advisors and constitutional experts convene in urgent conclaves, exploring the limits of royal authority. The king cannot dissolve parliament or sack a prime minister outright, but his influence is a weapon of immense power. A public address condemning Starmer's leadership, a private summons to Labour's chiefs, a subtle nudge to expedite his exit, any of these could tip the scales. Some speculate that Charles may break with tradition entirely, issuing a statement that shatters the silence and signals to the nation that the crown stands with the people against corruption. Such a move would be seismic, a royal thunderclap that could hasten Starmer's demise. Prince William, too, is drawn into the fray. The heir to the throne, beloved by millions, shares his father's alarm at the nation's plight. Insiders hint that he may join the king in this historic stand, his voice amplifying the call for justice. The royal family, united in purpose, could become the catalyst that ends Labour's reign of ruin. On the streets, the British public has reached its breaking point. The protests swell, a tidal wave of fury crashing against the gates of power. "Starmer must go," echoes through city squares, a mantra of a people betrayed. Trust in Labour, once a beacon for the downtrodden, lies in tatters, its reputation shredded by the avarice of its leaders. The media, once a tepid ally, now sharpens its quills, with even left-leaning outlets decrying Starmer's hubris. The nation demands answers, accountability, and above all, his resignation. Into this vacuum strides Nigel Farage and Reform UK, a political phoenix rising from Labour's ashes. Farage, With his populist fire, brands Starmer the architect of Britain's shame, vowing to purge the corruption that festers in Westminster. His rallies draw thousands, his words igniting a spark in voters weary of the old guard. Polls paint a picture of upheaval, reform surges, Labour plummets, and the Conservatives watch helplessly as a new force threatens to upend the status quo. An election now could see reform claim a victory once thought impossible, a testament to the depth of public disillusionment. Yet Starmer clings to power, his defiance a monument to his arrogance. He dismisses the accusations as partisan lies, his press conferences a parade of evasions and half-truths. But the tide has turned irrevocably against him. His allies dwindle, his party fractures, and the legal noose tightens. The Chief Justice's ruling has stripped him of legitimacy, the King's displeasure looms, and the people's wrath is unrelenting. Labour insiders already whisper of successors, plotting a future without him. The question is no longer if he will fall, but how, by his own hand, by his party's blade, or by the weight of a nation's scorn. The end is near. Britain stands at a crossroads, its political landscape forever altered. The £22 billion scandal has unmasked a government rotten to its core, and the reckoning is at hand. Will King Charles deliver the fatal blow? Will Labour sacrifice its leader to survive? Or will the people, in their unyielding fury, force the change they demand? The clock ticks, the tension mounts, and history waits to be written.